On the Fringe with Dan RadioStyle. Hope everybody out there's having themselves a great day. The true deep state battle has begun. I don't think there's any question about it. Deep state's going to do everything in their power to push forward their agenda. It's looking like to me that it's going to seriously be blocked, and I think that's kind of evident, and this is a little bit circumstantial, a lot circumstantial, but I think it's evident because of the way the lockdowns are actually occurring right now. If you look at who's doing the lockdowns, shouldn't be a surprise. We got 3 of our prize candidates right here. But it's their way of trying to kind of push things back down, to try to push us back into submission, to try to scare people. Now, I do manifesting talking stuff sometimes, and one of the key things about that is what you focus on is what you kind of create more in your life. If you talk to anyone that's successful, they focus on what they're trying to accomplish, and they stay focused on that until they get there. It's just a tried and true method for anybody that tries to find success. When you get people to focus on fear and scared and all this kind of, oh no, like it creates a very weird atmosphere for themselves, for their health, for others. And so that is a lot of what we're seeing right now. One thing that kind of jumped out at me today, and I just kind of want to throw this at you guys and see what you think, but I was looking at some of the businesses that seem to probably be, I guess, either a Republican-owned, if you will, which I think is probably true to a large extent, or is just pure and simple not deep state-owned. And then I looked at what might be deep state-owned. And so let me throw at you. So I was thinking, like, if you think of all the things that are getting hurt right now with the lockdowns, with the COVID, the businesses that are truly getting hurt the worst. Now, one, obviously anyone's personal business, that can go on either side, but people that have their own businesses, that's in line with freedom, right? So I still kind of consider those people to be kind of pro-Constitution, pro-freedom, kind of anti-deep state. But so you've got travel, you've got hotels, you got oil and gas, you got churches, you got health and gym memberships. These are the businesses that are taking major hits, that are just hurting for certain. Now, I know church isn't technically a business, but come on now, it basically is. It's a tax-free entity that takes in a lot of donations. So there's big money in churches. But when I was looking at stuff that seems to be doing really well, in spite of all the lockdowns, you've got alcohol and drugs, you've got Amazon, grocery, truck drivers, schools. Now, again, I think a lot of that's union-based. There's a huge tie-in, obviously, to that in the voter base. But look at sports and media. Now, funny that sports and media right now, the numbers are tanking like nobody's business. It is very, very bad. And it's kind of funny because it's starting to create all sorts of wars, if you will. And there's a major one that I'm going to share. It's Tucker Carlson has gone to war with someone that, frankly, I'm not going to side with Tucker on this one. And I'm going to explain why, and I'm going to give some context for it, and I'm going to share what the beef is all about. Also, I want to kind of try to help illustrate some of the deep state things that are occurring. I'm just trying to help people sort of use these as a lens to focus on what's happening to us, right? Like when you hear the news tell us what they're doing, when you see the shutdowns happening, when you see these things talked about, if you have some context or understanding from where the deep state's coming at this from, it doesn't necessarily make it hurt less, but it helps you understand what's happening. And when the deep state attacks, you've got to understand it's because they realize they're running out of time. And this is the big thing that was laid out. Now, this is the video, and I chopped a whole bunch of it yesterday, and I've got one small, cool little part, about 2-minute section of the question and answer that I'm going to share with you coming up shortly. But one thing that was funny when I was trying to record that is literally about every 40 seconds or so, this video would pause for about 2 seconds. Every 40 seconds while I was trying to record stuff. I was going to do a little more, but there was just so many pauses, and so I had to edit them out. It wasn't impossible, but trying to play it live for anyone, it would drive you insane. So this is an hour-and-a-half long video that, with all the pauses, if you watched it all the way through, that'd probably take you 3 freaking hours. So again, I've noticed that on a couple channels. Edge of Wonder's one that talks about some really crazy stuff, and they got in all sorts of trouble in the whole YT world, if you will. So they're just one example of videos I would watch frequently where I would have these issues. And it always kind of cracked me up because I could put on another video immediately after, or pause the one and put on another, and it'll play through fine. So there's just some strange things that I notice sometimes and certainly makes me wonder about. One great example, we got state judges are rejecting Arizona, Pennsylvania election lawsuits from GOP or the Trump campaign. Now, a lot of you, and this is on Epoch Times, mind you, a lot of you might see this and go, oh, that's not good. That's not good at all. And that's what I'm saying. The deep state's trying to paint a picture, and they're trying to get people to think, oh, there's no chance for these lawsuits. First off, the people that are the legal team that Trump has is beyond stellar. They're probably the best of the best of the best of the best. Like, these guys are just beyond off the chart awesome. Not to mention Sidney Powell is a freaking giant. She's big. She's a big, tall woman. And she's brilliant on top of that. So, yeah, she's a giant in many ways. But that being said, when we see these things happen, this is only because the states can reject. That's fine. They can reject all day long. And even if the state Supreme Court rejects, almost makes it easier, because now that's a guarantee escalate up to Supreme Court. These are the steps and stages that have to happen. The votes have to be certified at some point, or at least finished counting. Continuing to do recounts is just stalling, and it's not necessarily helping anybody in a lot of these cases. So this is part of the process. It's okay. So I want people to relax when they see this kind of news, to go, oh no, everything's falling down. No. I still think, without a doubt, that we will be seeing 4 more years of Trump. I think we've got a whole lot of things that we're going to need to work on once that happens, because there's going to be some very upset people. And so we'll deal with that once we get there. Right now, it's trying to keep people positive, trying to keep people looking forward, trying to keep people realizing that there is more going on than meets the eye. We know deep state censorship is prevalent and rampant. We know that deep state media doesn't talk about stuff at all. And they will cut away early. They won't give people a chance to prove. They did it to Kayleigh McEnany when she was showing affidavits. And they go, oh, they're making all sorts of claims. And Cavuto cuts away and says, they're making crazy claims. We can't just in good conscience, or whatever the word was he used, can't let you do that. He's like, if they were going to offer proof, then maybe. She's holding pieces of paper with writing on it. Now, is that the proof? No, but there is proof, and it's been published. And we're seeing a lot of it. Now, things to keep in mind. This is the work of the deep state trying to create the divide. Everyone wants to say Trump is the divide. Well, even per the right scoop, and per what Joe Biden's saying, Trump being, quote, out of the question, or out of the equation since Biden's been elected, and I'm not saying I agree with that, but it probably does say below my video that the AP decided this election. Whatever, that they don't decide the elections, the courts do, or the legal process does, not the public opinion, certainly, and also not the media, because the media taints the public opinion. I've got evidence of that, and Giuliani calling them out, and there's a funny little part where a reporter, asks a question, and then he finally says, what group are you with? And the answer is awesome. So that's going to be 2 minutes worth getting, and we're going to get up to that here very shortly. But again, elected DNC member says Trump supporters are going to need to be deprogrammed. Folks, this is truly the fight of our lives. And in some cases, some of us are going to be so heavily doxxed if this doesn't work out well because we tried to go down and do the right thing. I mean, it's like a lot of us are all in at this point. All in. I got nothing else to give. I'm giving my all, and we'll see how long they will allow me to continue to do that. At least I am trying to do it as effectively as I possibly can. But these are things to keep in mind. A lot of people that are deep state programmed themselves are the ones that are asking us to be deprogrammed. In a lot of cases, we're the ones that have actually woken up, the whole red pill thing, right? So we've actually kind of come to terms with where we're at in the world. We're not programmed anymore. That's the problem. The programmed people think we're the ones that need to be deprogrammed because something's wrong with us, when it's the other way around. The people that are supporting these deep state candidates can't see how they're being manipulated. They can't understand how one person cannot possibly be so bad that every single thing they do, 100% of the things that Trump has done are bad? Really? Like, I can't listen to anyone that comes at me from that angle. And that's where a lot of these deep state programmed people on the progressive left tend to lie. They don't believe anything. And they kind of point the finger at us and say, we're the ones that are denying everything. Well, there's lots of evidence we're looking at that you're not, and we're worried about the election integrity of this country. Now, I've heard Republican people, the Hodge twins actually, were trying to talk about how, well, we're trying to make it safer for the Democrats too. It's like, no, not really. I mean, I get what they're saying. They're trying to paint it as we're trying to look out for election integrity for the United States, and we certainly are. But if the Dems win this, if the left deep state people win this, there will never be another Republican Party that will ever have power. Ever. That is never going to be allowed. Especially how they want to deprogram us. We've got this going on. You are all undermining the Democrat election. says the reporters scream at Pence when he went out to do a coronavirus thing, and then right after he was done doing his thing that he wanted to say, he walks the heck off stage. It's what everybody's doing right now. Kelly McEnany's not taking questions. Pence isn't taking questions. Trump's not taking questions. I wonder why. Because that's the deep state's method of trying to paint the narrative and trying to counter anything that Trump or Pence or anybody that's pro-freedom, pro-constitution, anything that anybody says from that side of the equation, we've got all these tools that we can use to refute, to deny, to turn it into something else. And Trump's not letting them. The election's already happened. The vote's already occurred. Trump doesn't need to try to pander, if you will. And right now, evidence is coming forward, and we're seeing more and more and more and more. Here's one example. Philadelphia had previously had rejected using Dominion software. Why? Well, it turns out the Dominion voting system submitted a bid to the city of Philadelphia, but were turned down for fear the company would be used by foreign manipulators looking to interfere in U.S. elections. Guy, I swear that sounds really similar to what happened, doesn't it? Very interesting. So although unsuccessful in Philadelphia, Dominion bid revealed much about the secrecy of their operations. People keep saying, there's no proof, there's no evidence. Dominion people have come forward. People that made this software have come forward. People that have been involved in the programming of this software have come forward. It's one of the reasons why there's a tiff going on with Tucker Carlson, because he's pulling a deep state move. I'm 100% sure now that Tucker is part of this little deep state nonsense, and we're going to talk about that as well. But apparently, in 2020 presidential election was also counted by a bankrupted company named Sidel, from Spain. Sidel has a long history of interfering in national elections using back doors into its election software. According to military intelligence, the U.S. military raided the facility in Spain where the servers are kept as federal investigators identify the origins of the software fraud. Now, there's been a few stories around this. One was the servers in Germany, or were they in Spain, or both? Were they duplicates of each other? That sometimes happens. Again, we'll see how that plays out. But we've also had all sorts of issues around the company that we can't trust them at all. So, again, a lot of things are coming out right now. People are coming forward. Information's being brought forth. Stuff is starting to happen. Now, we had this video yesterday. I shared quite a bit of it. It's an hour and a half long with all the Q&A. And I just kind of wanted to remind everybody, and it's my video from yesterday, so if you haven't seen it yet, please check it out. But Trump team outlines the path to victory. Big time. They talk about evidence. They talk about all the things that they know so far. They talk about the things that they can tell us publicly about. They even mention that some of the people that have come forward in these affidavits have actually been attacked, have been threatened doxing. And so they're starting to kind of hold this information closer to the chest. They're not willing to give it to deep state players because deep state players will give that personal information to others that will do harm. This is, again, their attempt to try to pressure people that are coming forward, trying to keep them from actually doing that. Now, I want to share this 2 minutes of Giuliani and his little press conference, and it's pretty cool. It's just kind of funny how he handled some of these questions. And I come in at it, he was talking about this Kumair guy and how he was involved, and he hates Trump, he hates the Republicans, he hates all that stuff. He was the guy I want to say he was from MIT. I might be wrong, but he was the PhD in physics and programming. And so he was the guy head of security and programming for this particular software. So anyway, let's check out the 2 minutes here. Rudy Giuliani just, I think, doing a pretty good job.
And he specifically says that they're going to fix this election. I don't know what you need to wake you up, to do your job and inform the American people, whether you like it or not, of the things they need to know. This is real. It is not made up. There's nobody here that engages in fantasies. I've tried 100 cases. I prosecuted some of the most dangerous criminals in the world. I know crimes. I can smell them. You don't have to smell this one. I can prove it to you 18 different ways. I can prove to you that he won Pennsylvania by 300,000 votes. I can prove to you that he won Michigan by probably 50,000 votes. When I went to bed on election night, he was ahead in all those states, every single one of those states. How is it they all turned around? Every single one of them turned around. Or is it more consistent that there was a plan to turn them around? And since there are witnesses who say there was a plan to turn them around, and it kind of begs credulity to say that it all happened in every single state, my goodness, this is how you win cases in a courtroom.
Sir, is it your goal here to pressure officials and lawmakers in these battleground states to block or delay certification so the GOP can pick their own electors? Is that the end game?
Now, she just asked if, I don't know if you could hear it or not, and it's really hard, because I'm sure she's, so whatever the hell. But she's asking, are you guys intentionally trying to block or delay the certification of the votes? This is the question the reporter just asked him. So watch how his response is. I love this.
Our goal here is to go around the Iron Curtain of censorship. That what publication are you with? It's to go around the outrageous Iron Curtain of censorship and get facts to the American people that if you were a fair and honest network, you'd have been reporting for the last 2 weeks. These are facts. These are things that actually happened. These people really wrote these affidavits. These affidavits are really part of the public record. You're concealing them, you're covering them up, and our role here is to do your job because you don't do it.
Bam. And that's very true. Now, if you couldn't hear her, her answer was that she was from CNN, and that's why they all started laughing. First off, obviously it's funny because CNN is all about what he was talking about. But on top of that, it's funny because CNN does such a horrible job, now they warrant laughter when you talk about it. Now, one thing I want to pull up real quick, not pull up, but talk about real fast, is Sidney Powell and the magnificence of her. Now, Giuliani took down major crime families, major mafia crime families. This guy's gone head to head. He's had death threats. He's had to probably go into protection programs at times of his life because the chances of him getting hurt were severe. So he's in this to win this as well. Sidney Powell got Flynn basically off. The Justice Department dropped the case. Now, to explain to you how familiar she is with dealing with the deep state, we know that Judge Sullivan still will not release Flynn. Judge Sullivan has put his career on the line and is probably praying to God that Biden wins, because if not, Sullivan's toast. So Powell is very aware of how the deep state game is played. This is going to come into play here in just a moment when I talk about the Tucker Carlson issue. Quickly, people talk about theevidence.com. Or here is theevidence.com. Everybody says there's no evidence, there's no evidence, there's no evidence. All right, so when you go to here's theevidence.com, which is a place where you can submit evidence. Now, is this heavily monitored and fixed? No. But this is for aggregating publicly available items of evidence that would be admissible in court, not general election news stories or updates. No one cares about that. We want legitimate stuff that's admissible in court. And so when you start scrolling through them, they've got significance 1 through 4 and all this, and I could do a better job at showing these, but I don't really want to read through them. I'm just trying to demonstrate how many there are. So when people say there's no evidence, and I continue to scroll through lots of evidence, there's no evidence, right? There's nothing to see here at all as I still continue to scroll. I'm going to try to pick up the pace a little because I'm running out of words. There's apparently 563 entries thus far in this hereistheevidence.com. So when they say there's no evidence, I would question that. And this is one of the things that is all around this whole Tucker Carlson thing. So apparently, Trump's attorney, Sidney Powell, was firing back at Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson was basically saying some pretty horrible things. Let's see if we can get this into a better order, maybe. We'll start with Tucker. So video, Tucker, I'm not going to play any of this, by the way. I'm not giving him the time of day right now. I'm not giving their news company the time of day right now. And frankly, I don't even watch any of their videos on YouTube anymore. I am really kind of for the moment, and this is not a cancel culture thing. I'm not asking you to cancel anything. All I know is the only thing I can do is vote with my wallet. The only thing I can do is demonstrate my unhappiness via my wallet and my loyalty. And when someone has betrayed me, like Fox has, my loyalty is done. And I am no longer going to support them with my wallet. And that is basically watching them. So I've found other sources. That being said, Tucker digs into Sidney Powell's claims about voting software purposefully being used to flip votes from Trump to Biden. And because Powell has yet to present any concrete evidence and has yet to respond to requests from Tucker, he's become very skeptical. So, Tucker continues, we invited Sidney Powell on this show. We would have given her a whole hour, but she never sent us any evidence, despite a lot of requests, polite requests, not a page. When we kept pressing, she got angry and told us to stop contacting her. This is how the deep state rolls. They're not interested in trying to get truth in front of the nation. We've seen what Fox has done in regards to that. They are interested in trying to get what information they have so they can get out in front of it. Because this legal team is not leaking information to the press. We've had affidavits, which are basically public. They're all submitted publicly. Some of them, I think, are somewhat being held behind closed doors a little bit right now because of some of the doxing and some of the threats that people feel is okay to do if you're someone that's pro-Trump, right? That it's okay to attack you, or it's okay to hate you, or it's okay to wish violence on you. Like, none of that's okay. And it's very strange how this double standard exists. But that being said, Trump's attorney, Sidney Powell, fires back. Tucker Carlson was insulting, demanding, and rude. And in response to Tucker Carlson's segment tonight, Sidney Powell tells me, apparently Mr. Carlson missed the news conference today. I would continue to encourage him and all journalists to review all the materials we have provided so far. Now, again, Tucker's probably trying to get information for the deep state so they can get in front of this, create a counter narrative. But when you don't know what the narrative is, it's really hard to create a counter narrative. And right now, there's a lot of question as to who, in fact, has the information, the good guys or the bad guys. Now, I will say, since the bad guys are behaving the way they are, they'd know if they had the data, wouldn't they? I kind of feel like maybe it went to the good guys. I don't know yet. I'm praying because I sure hope they've been smart enough to see all this stuff happening before it happens in their 4D chess. I would sure hope they would be able to know that these servers are going to be in question, especially if it's a CIA server, which supposedly the Germany location was. So again, Sidney Powell was firing back at Tucker. I'm going to play this small part because this was her on a different channel. And again, I'm being somewhat hypocritical. Call me out on that. I'll wear that for a moment, but only because they gave Sidney Powell a chance to essentially say what we've already heard. But I think it's worthy of at least hearing her words describe it.
All right, Sydney, I want you to respond to what Tucker Carlson said last night, Sydney. I don't know if you watched it, but Tucker Carlson said that he had invited you on his show to share evidence of the software flipping votes, and he said you got angry and refused to provide evidence for your claims of voting software flipping votes. How do you respond to Tucker Carlson? Did you get angry with the show because they texted you and asked you to please provide evidence of what you're alleging?
No, I didn't get angry with the request to provide evidence. In fact, I sent an affidavit to Tucker that I had not even attached to a pleading yet to help him understand the situation. And I offered him another witness who could explain the mathematics and statistical evidence far better than I can. I'm not really a numbers person. But he was very insulting, demanding, and rude, and I told him not to contact me again in those terms.
And again, I love the fact, I like Maria Bartiromo a lot, and I think that was her that was asking the questions that sounded like her, and I think that threw me a little bit earlier because just the fact that it was a weekday, and I thought she typically just worked weekends. So whatever the case is, it sounded like her voice, and so she is one of the few that I do like Again, I don't trust Fox at all. We'll see what happens with her in the big picture. But again, Harridge is another example. Who'd she end up with? ABC? Is that where she went? That being said, she left this whole organization and went somewhere else, probably because she knew that this was a bunch of crap going on at Fox News and figured it out. So this is the way the game is played, folks. And it's really important for us to stay on top of what we know, what's going on. Can we prove stuff, you and I? No, we can't. We can't. There's evidence. There's all sorts of evidence. So when people say there's no evidence, there's gobs of evidence. There's affidavits trying to explain that to people, how that's actually admissible in court as evidence. It's signed with a notary, and if you lie, it's considered perjury. So yes, that's evidence. There's lots and lots of evidence. Now, as far as statistical numbers and what they've got, I'm going to tell you this right now. I'm almost 100% sure that if there was literal manipulation of data happening on servers, especially servers in foreign countries, Sidney Powell's not going to be the one to release that. That's going to be coming through intelligence agencies. There's just no way. And now, maybe they can get it from the intelligence agencies. I don't know how that part of the game is played, but I'm sure when this gets to the Supreme Court, that information will be admissible for sure. So understand that the deep state's not being given information for one very good reason. They're liars. They've been lying. Every time they say there's no evidence, like Tucker said, there's no evidence. Well, a lot of people watched live on your station, Tucker, watched votes switch, where they went down 20,000 for Trump, or whatever the number was. It depends on the state. They'd go down by a certain amount for Trump, and they'd go up by exactly that amount for Biden. Like that. Like that. That doesn't happen. First off, you don't lose votes. And people saw it happen. Happen live on Fox News. Happen live on CNN. If you want to talk about evidence, I've got screenshots of you guys. I've got people who have recorded these. And there's evidence that you guys have changed numbers. So we'll let this go to the courts. We'll let this get decided that way. And finally, if it does, you've got to look at the fact that this is going to be decided by the House, which means the delegates of the House. Now, a lot of people get scared. They're like, but don't the Democrats control the House? That's not how it works. If you think about it this way, there's 50 states. Example with the Electoral College, which kind of matches Congress a bit. In the case of California, Congress they have 55 electoral votes, and they have, I don't know how many House of Representative members. It's probably well over 30 and maybe close to that number. But when it comes to the vote for Trump, when it comes to the court saying, all right, House, you're going to choose the votes, California gets one vote. Washington gets one vote. New York gets one vote. But do you know who else all gets one vote? All the red states. And there are a lot of those flyover states that the Democrats never cared about because they weren't populous enough. There is something like 37 states that are Republican controlled. 37 states that with their one vote will vote Republican. And there's roughly 23 states that are blue and will vote their one vote to blue. So this takes away the numbers game. This takes away the fact that California and New York make up, a third to a quarter or a half of the world or nation's population. This takes that away. This makes it fair. Your state gets a vote, my state gets a vote, those other states all get a vote, and then we'll see who the president is. And that is how this will play out. And that is why people are confident that we've got more than enough evidence to suggest there is all sorts of weirdness that happened in the elections. If they can prove that all sorts of weirdness happened in the election, that means the election results can't be confirmed, cannot be used because they are messed with numbers. So what do we do in that point? Well, the Constitution says we go to the delegates of the House. The House decides. The House decides who the president is. The Senate decides who the vice president is. I was talking with my girlfriend this morning, and we were wondering what happens if we don't get the Senate majority, and then they vote in like Kamala Harris as the vice president. Like, I would assume Trump, if that's even possible, I would assume Trump could never be in the same room with her because she might try to stab him, right? She might try to kill him just right there on the spot. So we'll see how that part plays out. But whether or not Trump is our president, we're going to be getting that result soon. And on top of that, I wouldn't be surprised if a couple of these blue states, realizing what's going to happen, might try to do the right thing and actually vote what the people want And if that happens, we might see some of those blue states even vote Trump in. And when it comes to that, as far as senators go, I think even the independent senators are probably going to give Trump a fair go. So I'm pretty sure, Pence a fair go. I'm pretty sure the Senate's going to back up the move. But that being said, there's enough evidence to suggest shenanigans have happened. There's been some irregularities in the voting process. Will our next election need to be hardened majorly? Yes. Whoever's in charge, hopefully not the Democrats, because I can't trust them at all because they're deep state. So hopefully we can at least get 4 more years with Trump. Trump can do everything in his power to try to make elections transparent and safe. And I want Democrats to have a fair chance. I don't want to be like the Democrats and be like, no, I will never forever give you a chance. No, I like people having options. I like freedom. That's the difference. You guys took advantage of it. You guys abused it. Not you guys, the good people, but you guys that are deep state. You've taken advantage of it. And now trust is an issue. And trust is something that does not come back, really, probably ever. But certainly, if not, it doesn't come back easily. And you've been very mean to a lot of people on the right. Very mean. Outrageously mean. And you know what? That's not going to be forgotten either. So when people keep saying that Trump's divisive, Trump's kind of out of the picture right now. You all are still being jerkholes. That, I think, says more about you as people than it does necessarily about the people you're pointing fingers at, certainly, because every person you point a finger at, there's 3 fingers pointing back at you. That's how that works. We need to learn to get along. We need to stop calling each other names. We need to stop fighting. We need to stop the violence. We need to come to the table and talk. But you can't do that when you're too busy calling people names, calling them belligerent, calling them racist, calling them all the stupid names that are coming out right now. You could just walk up to a random person that you know nothing about and call them a racist because they like Trump. You know nothing about them. You can't do that. That's ridiculous. I mean, again, it's just people calling people names. It's like walking around calling everyone stupid. In fact, it's one thing I didn't like about a lot of the YT channels that were kind of pro-Trump and majorly into the intelligence drops, is they were frequently talking about how the other side's so stupid. I don't like that. I don't think they are. I think they're taking advantage of their situation, and I think they underestimate their opposition, but I don't think it's ever a good idea to underestimate your opponent. And I think if we start calling them stupid, we're no different than them. And that has to be the difference between us and them, right? There has to be a difference. And if they want to claim they're morally superior, fine. We're going to demonstrate that we are by fairness, kindness, loving, the fact that all of us have God in our hearts. We will show them the way through the light. This is the best that we can do. But folks, we've got a case in place. We've got the most powerful people. Sidney Powell does not screw around. Giuliani does not screw around. And I'll tell you what, Jenna Ellis, I've been very impressed with her. He's got the best around him for a reason. And Trump does not lose, and neither do the rest of us. We will all go there together. We will be celebrating in some time in the future what we've accomplished and all the hard work that we've been through and all the ridicule we've been put up with and all that crap. We've got to stay strong. We've got to stay together. Remember, where we go one, we go all. It's on the Fringe with Dan RadioStyle.